noticed I've been getting caught up on the YouTubes and upload. I think I uploaded 4 last week, 4 or 5. Yeah, so I'll keep doing that, get us caught up to date. But in the meantime, you can catch the rewind immediately in the Facebook Forever Pack business group. You guys look awesome. All right. Okay, I'm just gonna jump right into it. You know, some thoughts. Like, to me, and I'm sure to you guys as well, I want truth, no matter where I can glean it. And truth is all over the place. There's all kinds of truths too. And I mean, I think Bob Proctor gave me and Lenny a transcript from Sterling W. Sills, who I'm reading this book right now. Oh, it's covered by a sticker. The Wealth of Wisdom. It just came in. I got it off of Amazon the other day. The Wealth of Wisdom. And Bob Proctor wanted to meet Sterling W. Sills. He had 2 appointments. One didn't go through, and the second one, he passed away before Bob was able to meet him. And Sterling gave him a transcript. His secretary, he was told his secretary to get these to Bob. And it was unfinished principles and laws that Sills was tapping into that hadn't been published yet. And he said, there's so many principles out there that we've yet to discover. I remember talking to somebody the other day that the Romans loved discovering principles. They're like, oh my gosh, here's another thing that we've learned. When you do this, you get this result. You know, cause and effect, the consequences of actions. Tony Robbins says, you don't get a result without an action. Anyways, I was reading his book this morning, and some things that popped into my mind just to kind of set this up, to open us up to it, because, you know, paradigms might want to reject principles. That wouldn't be good if you reject a principle, because principles are self-existent in and of themselves. It has nothing to do with whether we believe them or not. That doesn't make them true. What makes them true is that they self-exist within themselves. And so we want to gain knowledge, right? We want to gain knowledge. Some of the phrases that I've heard out there is gain knowledge by reading the best books, through study, and also by faith. Like we can, through studying, we could tap in to the spirit, that great cosmic wireless system. God's wireless program existed before the internet. And we can tap into that, and we can gain knowledge through getting enlightened, those moments of pure truth, downloading and connecting with that to our spirit to spirit. So by studying, by faith, by reading the best books, and gleaning knowledge and wisdom. And he uses Job's example of wisdom in this chapter that I'm reading. And I guess, you know, one of the things that I feel very blessed and fortunate about is getting the right books. Because it wasn't just Wallace Wattles. It wasn't just Raymond Hollywill. It wasn't just Neville Goddard. It's a lot of different truths that were gleaned. And I love that I can take all of that I've learned, put it in and experimented with it, and getting the results that I love, and that bring me greater joy, greater purpose, greater impact. And I love that I can pass that on, like the time and effort and energy and diligence that I put into that. I love the fact that, yeah, it's going to improve my life, but I love that it can also have the opportunity to improve other people's lives through sharing that. And we've all done that on one level or another in our lives. I just want to start out by prefacing, truth is independent in the spirit in which God has placed it. And I had an aha this morning. And to me, it's a cherished aha, but I want to pass it on because maybe it will be a cherished moment for somebody else as well, a cherished aha. And I used to think about, well, which came first, the principles, and then God applied himself to those principles. But God is the creator, right? And he's created the world and humans, and even populated the world with humans, right? Our spiritual is separate from the human experience, right? We're part of it, it's integrated, but we have this physical body. It's part of creation. And without going too deep, so we have the creation, we have the world, and it's been populated with humans, and we know the story of Adam, and I believe that version of truth is that Adam and Eve were the first. So there's experience, and behind those experiences, there needs to be rules, regulations, and principles of conduct, laws that need to be instituted. And I realized, wow, if God made the world and let me say humanized it, then he would have had to known that there would be principles and laws that would need to be instituted around that. So God is the engineer or the architect of the principles as well. It would have had to been all put together. And so those principles would need to go along with devising a plan, a human plan, right? To further our advancement, progress. Remember that the number one law of the universe is always progress, always progress. Not a stressed out, I'm busy progress, but just progress in general. And I'm getting a little bit of background noise. If you can make sure you're muted out. So wisdom comes only by knowledge. And in the end of the chapter here, it says, oh, and let me just say this too. Well, no, let me say this. Let me read that part. Where was it? Right. Okay. So it says, if a man does the right thing, he can be very profitable unto himself as well as to God. Job points out that man knoweth not the price of wisdom. Job points out that man knoweth not the price of wisdom. He said, it cannot be gotten for gold, neither shall silver be weighed for the price thereof. It cannot be valued with the gold of Ophir. He said, the price of wisdom is above rubies. We can easily understand this idea because while wisdom can produce wealth, wealth cannot produce wisdom. That sentence right there is worth writing down and really pondering on that and knowing that we can't get a result without an action. And not all results are equal. Not all results are equal. So we can easily understand this idea because while wisdom can produce wealth, wealth cannot produce wisdom. The pearl of great price, that's why it's the pearl of great price. It could fill up any storehouse. It talks about that, I think, in either in Proverbs or in Psalms, one of those two, where it says it's above any riches because you can fill any room in the house with the pearl of great price, which is wisdom. And wisdom comes from understanding. So what kind of understanding would be of the greatest pearl of great price? Crystal and Jojo and I had an awesome text going on about her discovering this pearl of great price. And she said, you can't easily help somebody understand that. It has to be understood through one's own diligence, one's own efforts, where you're putting your time, energy, and effort, and striving to put that in the best place so that you get the biggest return. And again, the return is the pearl of great price, because you could fill up any room with it, like he says right here. While wisdom can produce wealth, wealth cannot produce wisdom. So the pearl of great price is not riches, and it's not owning the pearl itself, which is worth, in this case, infinite. But it's not a diamond, all right? The diamond's not going to buy you wisdom, but the wisdom can buy you diamonds. It could fill up your room full of diamonds. That's why Job was a very wealthy person. Abraham, very wealthy person, but it was their righteousness, it was their wisdom. Therefore, wisdom is greater than wealth. Wisdom can also produce love and righteousness. What a great bargain it would be if we could buy unerring wisdom with money, with labor, with education, or even with our own blood, sweat, and toil and tears. to help us get the right answers. We ought to meditate more upon Job's question and try to discover the answer to this important proclamation. Whence then cometh wisdom, and where is the place of understanding? If we could personally get some good answers to those questions, we would be well on our way to the most outstanding personal joy. All right. So yeah, this is not Wallace Wattles. Okay, this is from Sterling W. Sills. I remember Bob Proctor saying, without a spiritual program, your program is incomplete. It may be a great program, but without a spiritual side to it, it's incomplete. Okay? Very wise words coming out of Bob Proctor's mouth. So what I want to do is read from this chapter from this book with Sterling W. Sills. And man, I'm just tempted to read the whole chapter because there's so much wisdom. As I came out of my office this morning, and Carrie, I ran into Carrie in the hallway. I said, I love Sterling W. Sills. He has so much wisdom to offer. I can understand why Bob Proctor wanted to meet him personally. All right, so again, truth being independent. Another thought that kind of fits along this, and I wrote this the other day down, any idea held in the mind, either feared or revered. So we've heard that, I think that's Napoleon Hill or Earl Nightingale, one of those guys. Bob Proctor quotes it a lot. And I was listening to a Bob Proctor YouTube yesterday, and he brought this up. He says, if you're afraid of it, that's fear. If you're afraid of it, that's fear. If there's something you're afraid of in your mind, that's fear. Any idea held in the mind, either feared or revered. And he says, will begin to clothe itself at once if you hold it, whether it's feared or revered. All right, so anything you're afraid of, if you keep holding that in your mind, if you hold that idea in your mind, background, there we go, it was an iPhone. Any idea that's feared or revered. So what we want to do is we want to get pure knowledge. Like Job wasn't afraid of anything. And even though he had some incredible challenges that he went through, he never feared. Why? Because principles are immutable. They're self-existent. And when you understand a principle and you hold to it, regardless of, and Sills talks about it in this chapter, he says, Job may not have understood why he was going through the challenges that he went through, because they may have been unwarranted, because he never forsaked the principles, right? He said, let's see if I can just find it here real quick. Yeah, right here. Job had thrilling faith in God. He said to God, I know that thou canst do everything. He knows God can do everything. Why does he know that? Because there's some knowledge that he has about some principles, about cause and effect and consequences. There's an absolute fact that he has about that, and he's not ready to abandon it. He's not ready to abandon it, even in a moment that might seem unjustifiable to him, because here's these bad things that are happening to him, yet he didn't break any principles. He was integritous to the principles. So even in spite, that's powerful. You think about the foundation of that being unshaken. That would be like me saying, I know these principles. I know that I know that I know them. And yet I don't get the results that I want, even though I'm being integritous to those principles. I wouldn't abandon the principles. What I would say to myself is, there's something that I'm not understanding right now. Either I'm not being as diligent as I should be, or if I am being as diligent as I should be in applying the principles in my behavior, then there's something else that I don't know here yet. I'm not going to abandon the things that I've learned that have produced the life and the blessings that I enjoy by aligning my life with those principles. If it was all taken away, there's got to be something that I still need to learn. There's something that I don't know, and that's the place that Job was in. He wasn't breaking any principles, but he didn't understand. He didn't know, and I'll say it loosely, that God and the devil had a deal going on, like kind of a bet, right? To see if Job would stay faithful. So he says, so Job had thrilling faith in God. He said to God, I know that thou canst do everything. So Sills goes on to say, and whether he understood the purpose of his own suffering or not, he would not abandon his integrity or his faith. For he said of God, though he slay me, yet will I trust in him. So when we can get to where we understand these principles, and it doesn't matter what the environment is, what the situations are, what other people say. He even said, you know, his friends and his own wife, where was that? Well, and he said, God also paid Job one of the greatest compliments when he asked Satan, hast thou considered my servant Job, that there is none like him in the earth, a perfect and upright man, one that feareth God and escheweth evil? I want to be like that. That's like, that to me, that holds out a standard. That's a standard that I'm going to strive to raise myself to, where God can say that about me, right? And now that's a personal desire. That's not a discipline. It's a desire. It's a self-motivation. It's that being self-motivated, right? Finding that thing that's going to self-motivate me, to push me to do things that other people wouldn't do. And it'll take me to reach for that self-actualization on a level that, you know, I don't know that it surpasses understanding, but it's this awesomeness, right? That word awesome could be applied to it. So Satan tried to argue, listen to this part very carefully. Satan tried to argue that Job's piety depended upon his prosperity, and that if Job should find himself in difficulties, he would abandon his allegiance to God. So we can frame that up a couple different ways. He would abandon his allegiance to the principles that he know that are true. He would abandon his discipline. He would forsake all of that and go ahead and break, you know, that discipline and that knowingness that he has with these principles. So it's kind of like we could use that loosely with the diet. We want to be healthy. We know the principles of health, and yet what the devil's saying is put some cheesecake in front of Job, and we'll see how strong he really is on this diet. We'll put some cheesecake in front of him, right? Because you know the principles of health. There is no principle of health in cheesecake. That's just an indulgence. But there's a consequence that comes with that decision of indulging oneself in cheesecake, right? So the devil's saying it on a much more profound level about Job. But let me ask you this question. Which came first, the wisdom and the knowledge, or the riches? In Job's case, which came first? See, there's something that God understands, and there's something that the devil doesn't understand. Is that he said, no, Job's going to give up his integrity to the principles, because it's the riches that make him so devout. But what God understands is, no, Job's been a very diligent servant. He's been searching, he's been understanding, he's been gaining understanding that's been written into his soul. There's some understanding that he has about principles and laws, and he not only understands them, he's been applying them to his life because he desires to be a righteous follower. He desires to be a righteous follower because he knows that everything's tied to that, that is good and worthy. And so he knows that that's how Job actually acquired his wealth. He already had the desire before he had the wealth. And then he gained the knowledge, which is what helped create the wealth. The law of compensation is a principle that he learned in order to gain that wealth, right? So God knows that Job will continue to be integritous. He knows his heart. The devil doesn't know Job's heart. Only God does, right? So learning these principles like Wallace Wattles teaches, and then how to apply them. Are we too easily distracted and too ready to abandon what we're first getting intimations of? If you're not doing your own studying and pondering and really get it on that internal level, like Crystal is getting it, and she's now seeing the results, the fruits of that. Unless we're really taking the time personally, we'll abandon them too quickly. We'll stop doing our 3x5 cards because we're tired, or because our patience has worn thin. But when you truly understand the principles, and there's another thing that simultaneously comes along with that, the ability to dream bigger, because you realize it's not about your past. Your past is not who you are. The past isn't even reality. The past is not reality. It's just the decisions that you made in that moment that collapsed around that. I wrote something on my 3x5 cards to remind me of what I was listening to Bob Proctor say. He said the divine spark is always constantly coming to us in its perfect form. It's always flowing to and through us, the divine spark, the energy, right? And energy is. We're talking Einstein now, right? Energy is. So that divine isness is always flowing to us in its perfectness. And then he says it's either feared or revered concerning something. So now we have the personal factor. We're going to take that divine creative power that's flowing to us in its perfectness, undefiled, and it hasn't decided whether it's going to go left or right yet until it comes to us and then through us. Right? So now he says, the divine spark coming into me is always either consolidating into awareness or fragmenting into the suggestions made to me by the environment. So the divine spark is coming into me, and I'm either consolidating it into the awareness of who I am and knowing who I am and what I'm choosing to focus on at any given moment and give feeling to that idea and that image, or I'm allowing it to be fragmented by my senses picking up things, my hearing, my eyes, right? So I'm watching the news, I'm hearing the news, and I'm allowing that divine spark, which is undefiled, to be fragmented into more of the environment? Or do I allow it to consolidate, and do I build one magnificent win after the next? That is all dependent on our wisdom and our understanding and our knowledge. And we're getting a taste of that, and sometimes we abandon it too quickly. We abandon our transcript or our template too quickly. Like Jojo, you've been following up with people to find out, have they abandoned their template too quickly? And what do we find? Yeah, in a lot of cases, people have abandoned their template too quickly. Why? Because they don't have understanding. They don't have that wisdom yet. I can help you to become aware of it here, but to internalize it on the level that Crystal's internalizing it, and she's getting the results, that goes beyond understanding to the normal average person, you know, it takes diligence from oneself, right? You have to be doing things of your own accord, not just showing up for quote unquote class. So let me just, I don't know, man, I'm just so, because I feel like this is that understanding that helps bring in the bigger picture that has made me who I am and brought these principles to life. There's some wisdom here that he brings out that cross the boundary of all time and space. And when you can tap into that, you become more motivated, more disciplined, more specific, I guess, more setting a direct course. It's setting a direct course that you can't, your vision. Without a vision, the people perish. So you've got to have some other understanding behind these principles to consolidate all of that together, right? So maybe let's just read a little bit here. Well, and know this truth, whatever principle of intelligence we attain unto in this life, it will rise with us in the resurrection. And if a person gains more knowledge and intelligence in this life through his diligence and obedience than another person, he will have so much the advantage in the world to come. He will also have many advantages in this world. So when we say it's not about the things you accumulate, it's about the person you're becoming on that journey of accumulating things, because you will accumulate things as you gain greater knowledge and understanding, just like Job did. But the understanding came first. And that's what you get to take with you. That's why I love this business model of Isogenics, because it's a personal development program with a compensation plan attached to it. The compensation's great, but you can't take that with you. But who you become in the process, you will take with you forever. And so that motivates me. That's what gives life to my Isogenics enthusiasm, is knowing that the person I'm becoming will go with me, and I'll have so much the advantage. Whatever principle of intelligence, that's knowledge and understanding and wisdom, whatever principle of intelligence we attain unto in this life, it will rise with us in the resurrection. And if a person gains more knowledge and intelligence in this life through his diligence, am I watching Family Feud every night? Am I watching Friends? Am I watching the latest, whatever the craze is, and not gaining any intelligence? I'm just being entertained. Imagine just being entertained your whole life and not gaining any knowledge and wisdom and intelligence. Okay, now we can do that. We can do that. So through his diligence and obedience than another, he will have so much the advantage in the world to come. He will also have many advantages in this world. To develop wisdom is the way to wealth. It is the way to health. It is the way to happiness and success. It is the way to knowledge and power and fulfillment. Let us start working at it more diligently immediately, since any procrastination may lead to our doom. Solomon said, with all thy getting, get understanding. And someone who may have been wise like Solomon said, with all thy getting, get getting, or get going. With all thy getting, get going. So understanding the spiritual causes of cause and effect, right? That's what we want to get to, so that we can start to build our life by design, but also that time won't be fettered away. It won't be fruitless in the resurrection. And that's what our spirits are craving. That's what our spirits are craving. And some people become so, exasperated, where they get so frustrated because they're not having success in their Isogenics business, which really means they're not getting to the foundation of the principles of cause and effect. Nobody's a victim in anything, right? You can allow yourself to be a victim, and you can take that story. You can frame up your story any way you want. So he says, one of my favorites of the Old Testament personalities is the prophet Job. Even among the giant luminaries that light up the pages of Holy Scripture, Job stands out like a bright beacon. We are introduced to him in the first chapter of the Old Testament book that bears his name, right? There was a man in the land of Uz, if that's how you say it, U-Z, whose name was Job. And that man was perfect and upright, and one that feared God and eschewed evil. He was a very wise man, a great prophet, and an outstanding family man. Because of his thoughtful planning and vigorous industry, he was also a very wealthy property owner. Job loved God and all righteousness. He possessed Job would love Isogenics. Job would totally love Isogenics. Do you get that? He would love Isogenics. In him we see love, righteousness, faith, understanding, patience, sympathy with his fellow men. A predominating theme of his book centers in that eternal question concerning the purpose of human suffering, either merited or not merited. That's a powerful statement right there, either merited or not merited. Suffering frequently is purifying to our souls if we have the right attitude about it. I really loved reading that this morning, because a lot of us are going through this, what could be a challenge or an opportunity right now. It's been enforced upon pretty much everybody, against maybe our own wishes and our own will. And how are people reacting to it is a tall tale of the individual. and their understanding and their wisdom. Suffering frequently is purifying to our souls if we have the right attitude about it. Did Job have the right attitude through his suffering? It's the scriptures say even of Jesus, yet learned he obedience by the things which he suffered. Probably next only to the master himself, we think of Job as heading the list so far as human suffering and the excellence of his attitude about it are concerned. So I wrote to the side, making a heaven of hell. It's not just speaking words. It is Dave says, put me in hell and I'll make a heaven of it. Am I making the best? How's my attitude through this quarantine? How's my attitude been? Now you guys get a little glimpse of that, but I know how my attitude's been, right? Am I doing what Wallace Wattles teaches in this very moment of quarantine? Am I outliving? Am I outgrowing my current position? Am I outgrowing my current position? Am I doing things above and beyond what are expected of me? Am I rendering to Caesar with excellence the things that belong to Caesar? Do you see that? Do you guys get that? It's an attitude. An attitude is based on our understanding of cause and effect. So, do I have an attitude of gratitude through this quarantine? Am I outgrowing my current position? We've all been put in this position. I used to say it as a mechanic. I outgrew my position as a mechanic. I gave excellence into my being a mechanic. I cleaned the tool room. Now, remember, prior to, I didn't look forward to going to work prior to Isogenics and picking up Wallace Wattles' book, where he says you have to outgrow your current position. Now, somebody who has wisdom and understanding would outgrow their position all the time. But it would be what comes first, the understanding or the outgrowing the position? The understanding. So by reading the book, remember, I want to glean out of the book the principles that it's teaching and exemplify them in my life. I want to take them out of the book and I want to internalize them. So when I was reading Wallace Wattles, I had much better energy. Isogenics gave me my energy back. Well, I never really had it. It gave me energy. It gave me mental clarity. Started releasing the weight. But it was Wallace Wattles' book that taught me clean the tool room, wax the lifts, give excellence to the customer when the service advisor asks me to come up and talk to them, which I don't get paid to do that. I only get paid to fix cars while I'm at work because I get paid per job, not on a clock. So was I giving excellence? I was giving better excellence to customers, right? Because I was outgrowing my current position and I had an attitude of gratitude through that whole process. So I was taking the principle and I was applying it. So now all of us could be in that mechanic's position. Me as the mechanic at the shop. Remember, prior to being mechanic, that was not my attitude about work. I wanted to get away from work. I wanted the weekends. I wanted 5 o'clock to come and I could start getting ready to go at 4:30. So I could leave the shop, right? That was my attitude prior. Learning the principles of giving excellence into everything I do. How I do anything is how I do everything. So now you've all kind of been thrown into that mechanic shop environment. How's your attitude doing? Is it worth catching when it comes to being quarantined and talking about the quarantine? Because if you're just indifferent about it, that's not good either. That doesn't cut it. How's your attitude? Is it worth catching? Is it amazing when it comes to the quarantine? Render unto Caesar that which belongs to Caesar, right? Are you doing it with excellence? Because being indifferent is being lukewarm. In order to succeed, you have to be different. Not mediocre, not average. And is your attitude pessimistic about it? Are you finding things at fault with it? It would be no different than me being a mechanic and Wallace Wattles teaching me to outgrow my current position with excellence. Because if I'll do that there's a sense of understanding that I have. And that understanding flows over and it always comes back. I wrote down, so attitude of gratitude in all things, in all places, at all times. It eventually and always comes out on top. It eventually and always comes out on top. Malcolm has done so many phone calls where he's been told, no, don't call me anymore, Malcolm, or no, now's not the right time. But how's his attitude in that moment? Because if it's an attitude of gratitude and he understands the principles, he's going to create an attitude within himself that always comes out on top or always comes out on the bottom or is just indifferent about it. But you don't get a result without an action. All three of those are actions. It's choosing to govern yourself in a certain way. So one of the most thrilling ideas in the Holy Scriptures, so far as I'm concerned, is spoken by Job when in the midst of his troubles and afflictions, he lets us feel the strength and power of his godly attitude as he says, all the while my breath is in me and the Spirit of God is in my nostrils, my lips shall not speak wickedness, nor my tongue utter deceit. Till I die, I will not remove mine integrity from me. My righteousness I hold fast and will not let it go. My heart shall not reproach me so long as I live. Oh, what? Out of the template, which part does that resonate with? Where is he rocking that part of the template? I'm going to pull it up here. What part of the template has he just aced right there? Like he gets an A+. Let me pull it up here. There it is. Okay. Share the screen. What part of this template do you know that whatever he sets out to do is going to happen? He's going to get the goal every time. Anybody want to unmute themselves and say which part did he just rock out on this template? Did he just ace? Let me read it again. All the while my breath is in me and the Spirit of God is in my nostrils, my lips shall not speak wickedness, nor my tongue utter deceit. Till I die, I will not remove mine integrity from me. My righteousness I hold fast and will not let it go. If he's got a goal, if he has a vision, if he had a template, oh my gosh, is that template going to become a reality for him? Will that template, that spark that's coming to him, that Sills says, or that Bob Proctor talks about, is either fragmenting or it's consolidating. If he had a template with a vision on it, is it consolidating with this kind of attitude and this kind of behavior? My righteousness I hold fast and will not let it go. My heart shall not reproach me so long as I live. Anybody want to unmute and say which part of the template is he rocking?
He's absolutely not self-betraying.
Exactly. Yeah, that part right there. He does not go this way. And if you're familiar with the story of Job, he never went this way, no matter what the event was. And it's like Sil said, whether or not he understood why he was going through the challenges, probably not. But he knew some principles that were immutable. And if we come across the point where we just don't quite understand, like I didn't read Raymond Hollywell till years later. I didn't read Neville Goddard till later, which helped me to understand more about the challenges I went through and the self-talk that I could now use to stay over here. But I stayed over here in some cases ignorantly because of the principles that I knew, like the law of assumption. There is a thinking stuff from which all things are made. And when a thought is held in that, right? So learning that from Wallace Wattles, I didn't understand the law of non-resistance yet. I didn't understand the law of assumption as clearly as Neville Goddard taught it, but that came years later. But I was not going to let go of the principles that I did know. And there is a thinking stuff. And my thoughts held in it are going to produce the thing that I'm thinking about. That took me a long ways. Just like Job, it took Job a long ways. He may not have understood the challenges he was going through, but he held tight to what he knew that he knew that he knew. Okay? Now, there's a sense of discipline that comes with that as well. We may know that having a shake rather than pizza is better for us. We may have a goal to get to a certain fitness level, and the event shows up and there's some pizza that somebody ordered in the house and you were planning on having a shake. It's not a matter of knowing at that point which one's going to lead you to your goal. It's a matter of justification versus discipline. That's why the why has got to be pretty big. The why has got to be pretty big. My why is always tied back to whatever principle of intelligence we attain unto in this life, it will rise with us in the resurrection. And I know that I'm a creative being now, and I will forever be a creative being. And I know that I'm going to go on to create bigger and better things. That's always been a big part of my why, self-actualizing that on the highest level that I can while in this mortal, this mortal, fallible state. It's always been my number one driving factor. And I've grown that. And as I self-actualize that, what gives me greater joy in that journey now? Helping other people to discover that journey and just how fulfilling it is and how purposeful it is and how impactful it is. When Isogenics is gone and that name isn't said anymore, I will still be the person that I've become through that vehicle and forever be grateful for it. In fact, I could see myself in the eternities going on continuing to teach things that I'm learning, just like God does with us, right? So when we find these bigger reasons, these bigger meanings to life that are really important, like find something you would live for. So find something you would die for and then live for it. Find something you would die for and then live for it. A lot of people never find that thing. They never find it. They're too busy watching Friends or whatever TV show or whatever other distraction is out there. Sports is a huge distraction. I'm not saying that those things aren't pleasant and that we can't enjoy them, but how much of our lives are we dedicating to them? There's an exchange in every decision. There's an exchange for an either higher or lower result. All right, so under the pressure of a little adversity or trouble, many people adopt the foolish attitude of anger and bitterness and blame. How many people are using that right now with the quarantine? Anger, bitterness, and blame. Because how you do anything is how you do everything. I could use some pretty stark contrast right now. I'm not going to go there because there's probably too many things with it, but I could use some pretty stark contrast about some conditions that people have been put in and knowing that some people rose above that condition.
So what's the antidote to anger, bitterness, and blame? It's gratitude.
Yeah. I was going to say, is that a rhetorical question? What do you want to share?
It's gratitude. I mean, that's how I get out of pity party, right? I mean, Sunday, I was tired. I worked 6 days and I'm doing the Zoom for our church. So really I'm working first thing in the morning as well. I was tired, I was cleansing. And so I was low energy. I was cold because the weather's turned cold, right? And I'm feeling sorry for myself. And I almost didn't call the guy that was on the phone with you on Thursday I'd kind of think, oh, I made too many calls. I can't take another no. That was my pity party, right? I can't take one more no, right? He hasn't called me. So I call him. First thing he says is, yeah, he said, I don't want to do the shake, Malcolm, but I'm going to do the isogenesis. That's right out of his mouth. He says, maybe I'll try the shake later, but that isogenesis, he's the guy whose son worked for Bill Andrews. He knows he's met Bill Andrews and John Anderson personally. His son worked for them, right? I almost didn't call him, because I'm feeling sorry for myself because I was tired, right? I made too many calls. I've heard too many no's, Dave. Wah, 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 wah.
Yeah. Well, that's exactly it. That's why the chapter on gratitude is so powerful in Wallace Wallace's book, right? I think we're on that chapter right now, or did we just finish it? So going on, thank you, Malcolm, for interjecting that. I mean, that's it. That's the practical application of this right here. So we're taking this, that's what this Zoom is all about. It's taking the personal development and applying it to our isogenics business specifically, right? And so how do we find that sense of gratitude? Listen to what he says here, because sometimes seeing the contrast and having the role model, that's what drives me. I don't know about you guys, but seeing a role model and setting the standard for me to reach to. I don't know if that's the athlete in me. I don't know. It's the progress. It's in all of us. It's the drive that our spirit has for progress, right? So when we see somebody, but then we can mess it all up with our brain and our paradigm and then start to compare ourselves to that person rather than letting that person aspire us higher. They actually aspire us lower. They start to aspire us to degrade ourselves. Some people will take that because they're going into their brain now rather than staying in their heart and what's possible for them. So it says, all right, so attitudes of anger and bitterness and blame everybody else for their problems. Job's friends tried unsuccessfully to get him to adopt this negative, destructive attitude. Think about that in your isogenics business. But it wasn't only his friends. Even his wife said to him, curse God and die. The person that would undoubtedly be the most closest to him. There's some good examples, some good parallels in the scriptures. And some people might write that off as, well, this is not what God wants me to do. God's will be done. Which Holliwell says is the most overused, misunderstood phrase in the Bible. God's will be done, right? So, but Job pointed out that he had received many good things. There you go, right there, Malcolm. But Job pointed out that he had received many good things from the hand of God and that he ought to be able to stand up like a man under a little adversity. I see that displayed in the example of Malcolm all the time. Job had thrilling faith in God. He said to God, I know that thou canst do everything. And whether he understood the purpose of his own suffering or not, he would not abandon his integrity or his faith, for he said of God, though he slay me, yet will I trust in him. God also paid Job one of the greatest compliments when he asked Satan, hast thou considered my servant Job? There is none like him in the earth. Why? Because of the time and energy and effort and where Job's putting that. A perfect and upright man, one that feareth God and escheweth evil. So we read that. Satan tried to argue that Job's piety depended upon his prosperity. What comes first, the gratitude or becoming a millionaire? You become a millionaire and then you're grateful? Or you're grateful? Lenny used to share that. He'd say, am I happy and grateful because I'm a millionaire, or am I a millionaire because I was happy and grateful? Satan tried to argue that Job's piety depended upon his prosperity and that if Job should find himself in difficulties, he would abandon his allegiance to God. There are many people who follow their religion as a sharp, unethical businessman would pursue his business opportunities. He would make the best deals he could, but would turn away and do other things if they did not seem to secure for him an advantage. That's where God's will be done comes in. People abandon the vision that's been put in their heart, that they developed, that they felt was the right vision for them in that moment. And then like a sharp businessman that's unethical, it says an unethical businessman would just turn away from that deal and go look for something else. And so God permitted Satan to take from Job everything that he had except his life. But Job stood up to the situation with great strength and determination. He said, naked came I out of my mother's womb, and naked shall I return thither. The Lord gave, and the Lord hath taken away. Blessed be the name of the Lord. He's holding on to the principles like I did right here with the efficient actions. I knew that my thoughts were powerful after reading Wallace Wattles' book. I didn't know the law of assumption as well as I did later, but I knew that my thoughts were powerful and they meant something. Whether or not Job understands why it's being taken away when he's done nothing wrong, he's stuck to his guns. He's stuck to it. He stuck to what he knew that he knew. And how many people, like the unethical businessman, he would make the best deals he could, but would turn away and do other things if they did not seem to secure for him an advantage. How many people self-betray, abandon their template because it doesn't seem to be giving them the advantage in the moment? And it's because they didn't get to where Crystal's at. And I don't know if Crystal's totally there. I'm going to use that as an example because the text that we had yesterday helps me to believe that she's getting it on an internal level, like she's really being able to see the contrast between thinking one way and versus thinking another way, and how that is producing the results, and that thinking is a behavior, and you don't get a result without an action, and that she's adjusting her actions and her behavior with her thinking, and she's making the correlations now. So there's a sense to me that she does get it on the level of a Job. Is it deeply seated and rooted deep enough to where she won't abandon that in times of challenges, which will surely come for Crystal? I don't know. Only Crystal knows. And maybe Crystal doesn't even know yet.
It's that piece of it.
Go ahead.
I was just going to say it's that piece of it. It's that piece of excitement and feeling and understanding that when you get that vision that I'm on the right path, that things are falling into line, all the tumblers are clicking together, all of those things start to line up, and you have this amazing epiphany moment that all these things that you've worked for are coming together. And then that's something that you can only experience when you experience it. Like a cleanse day, right? We can't tell people how they're going to feel after a cleanse day. We can, but until they experience it, you don't understand it, right? So it's that experience. Once you have it, that's the thing that we're always working to not only hold on to, but strive to get back to when things come in and sideline us, because they're going to come along. That's going to happen. And it's holding on to that feeling and that experience that brings us back to it. If we abandon that feeling, because like I said, and for us, we're just here trying to tell you what that feeling is going to feel like. If you haven't had that yet, it's really hard to describe it. You know it when you're in it, you know it when you're having it. I'm like, write it down, journal it, like remember every moment of it, swim in it, feel as much of it as you can feel. So when it's not there, you have something to connect back to be able to pull you back to that.
Jojo, over the years, for ourselves and for people that we've mentored on the team, when we've been there ourselves and we've seen other people where Crystal's at, and then things start to unwind, the challenges come, and they just don't seem to get back on track. What is it that they stopped doing?
First of all, you stop believing. You forget what you're doing. You fall out of gratitude. You start to look at the bad instead of the good. And so it's where your focus goes. Your focus totally goes to the rabbit hole instead of staying in the direction that got you there to begin with. So we abandon all the things that got us there to begin with, the vision, the 3x5 cards, the daily connection of knowing that you're going in the right direction. life is always going to life us. No matter what happens, it's what we choose to do with it when it shows up. Right?
Without fail, every single time they've stopped doing their vision work in the morning, which Tony Robbins says is not negotiable. It's a non-negotiable. You have to connect to your compelling vision every morning. Because it institutes these laws, these principles. And if you don't understand those principles, then you would abandon it. If you don't, that's why I can't say for Crystal whether or not she truly understands the principles. It seems like she does from the outside looking in. It seems like she does, but I can't truly say whether or not she's going to go from one magnificent win to the next in spite of challenges. I could hope
the first time it happens, you go, oh, okay, I get it. But, you come into this and we're like, we want to be a millionaire, but you sort of don't understand what that means, or you just know that there's a direction that you want to go. And it's not till you jump like these little stepping stones along the way that bring you there. And so it's trusting from one stepping stone to the next that it's taking you in the right direction, which can be really difficult to do sometimes when life shows up and tries to show you other things.
So the bottom line is, what are you abandoning then in that moment? What are you abandoning? You're not abandoning your isogenics business. You're abandoning your self-actualization. You're abandoning the fact that whatever principle of intelligence we attain into in this life, it will rise with us in the resurrection. And if a person gains more knowledge and intelligence in this life through his diligence and obedience than another, he will have so much the advantage in the world to come. We will also have many advantages in this world. All right, so that's what we're abandoning, our greatness that Marianne Williamson talks about, right? Are you afraid of that greatness, or do you want to step into it? Because when we abandon our business, we're abandoning self-actualization and that higher intelligence that we could attain. And again, it's just a matter of staying in the game until we get that aha moment, till we get some more understanding. And all you're getting, get understanding. So I wanted to bring this in, and I'm going to finish it up next. Maybe I'll do one during the week this week to finish up this chapter on wisdom, because there's still some very powerful self-talk and principles that you can use as those mantras and those maxims that you could use that empower you in the moment with an understanding, right? We always do what we think is best for us in the moment. So to self-betray because we think that's the best thing to do in the moment is only because we don't have powerful enough maxims, powerful enough understanding and mantras to cling to in that moment. And somebody who's a figure competitor like Wendy, she has great maxims. She has great understanding. She has great mantras that she's going to run through to get to her vision instead of eating the cheesecake, taking the ice, taking the tri-release or whatever. Cleansing, eating a healthy whole food rather than a processed food. Okay? She has the maxims that's going to help her do that. She's making the best decisions. How do we know she made the absolute best decisions? Because she became the world champion. She became the world champion. That's how we know she got the result. But we always do for ourselves in any given moment with any event what we think is best for us. And the only reason we self-betray is because we didn't get the understanding. And that could be resolved. We can fix that. How? By getting the understanding. I mentioned to you a book that has a lot of wisdom in it. We have Wallace. There's a lot of books that I mentioned, a lot of authors. Not a lot, but a few. And what I learned was read these authors that Bob Proctor mentions. And don't just read them, devour them. Eat them up and don't be hungry after I've eaten them. Okay, so I want to open this up. What do you need? Up there. Anybody want to share anything? We're at the top of the hour.
Hey, Dave, I just got a question. This is Hector Gomez. My sponsor is the awesome Willie Morris. What was that saying you said? Find something to die for and then?
Yes, find something that you would die for and then live for it. Carrie bought it and it's in our kitchen. What's that?
All right, yeah, I didn't get the last second half. Thanks.
all I wanted to, he said, if anybody wanted to say something, I just want to say hi and I love you guys.
Okay.
Bye.
Hi, Dave, I have a quick question. You said something that Bob Proctor said, without spirituality, your program
Without a
is what?
spiritual program, you might be on a good personal development program, but if it doesn't have a spiritual aspect to it, then it's incomplete. It might be a great program, but it's incomplete.
Thanks.
Without that connection to God, that bigger meaning and understanding that adds so much more purpose and enthusiasm.
Thanks.
He's the author of our whole plan of why we're here, the plan of happiness. He's the author of it. You've got to have that spiritual side. I mean, come on. I mean, that's doesn't even take common sense. That's a no-brainer, right, Willie?
Yes, sir. So yeah, I just want to as quickly as I possibly can, because we'll never know. Like you said, I don't, that you didn't know if Crystal even knows like where she at. The truth. Well, the way I see it is, that's what life does. It puts us in predicaments when we find out where we really are. With anything in our lives, and we're never complete. We're never done. Like you said, it's ongoing. And in fact, when, if any one of us decide that, my work here is done and you're still breathing, you might have made a left turn and you're off course, because it's never done. It's never done. There's always more to grow. There's always more to learn. There's always more to do, and I just, today was a great call. Yesterday, Vigna and I had the opportunity, we found out on Saturday that we could have went to our physical place of worship. And, we just kind of thought about it, and we decided Sunday morning to just kind of relax and spend some time with the kids. But I felt like I went to church today. It was awesome, because the principles are principles. They're God's principles, and that's it. You can, people, however it gets conveyed, it's still God's laws, like Jim Rohn would always say, and if you're not happy with these principles that have been embedded into this world, then you might have to start your own planet, but this is the way it is, so it was a great call, Dave. Thank you so much for everything that you do. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Thank you for that input. And with
Dave?
the quarantine, you guys, real quick, Mary Jo, and then with the quarantine, so good, better, best. I'm glad that I can look back and see that I've done better than I would have, not knowing what I know now. It's not my best. After this morning and reading that this morning, I'm going to start cleaning out the tool room based on the environment that I'm in, right? I'm going for best with my attitude. I think it's been worth catching, but it could be better. And there have been moments where I wasn't a Job. Maybe that ought to be one of our new inside little phrases, is like, are you a Job right now? Go ahead, Mary Jo. Did you want to share
I
something?
just wanted to say that this whole, yes. Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. Yeah, I just wanted to say that through this whole Zoom, it kept coming back to me was that the Tony Robbins 30-minute video that you referred us to. Gosh, now it's got to be 6 weeks ago, about standards. When we have the standard, when we set our standard, the goals really just come along with that. It's just, if we if we set our standards that, yeah, we're going to start out in the morning doing certain things. If we just say, okay, these are non-negotiables and those are the standards, then whatever you're looking for, you're going to attain eventually. I mean, it's just going to happen. And we're so fortunate that we have products that are, just keeping us going so incredibly that you don't forget about those standards. So I just wanted to.
No, I like that. That's so key.
Really brought
because,
me.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, that's okay.
Yeah, standards. I like how Tony frames that.
I'm done.
Somebody asked what that is. Next 30 minutes for the next 30 years of your life. Yeah, standards are what do it. We wake up and how do you know what your standards are? What did you do this morning before getting on the Zoom? They're your habits. He says your standards are like your habits, the things that you're doing consistently day in and day out. And we need to raise our standards, or we can raise our standards. And when you raise your standards, that's an action, which is going to produce a result. There were some standards that I learned about the industry. When I heard them, I didn't argue them or say I can't do them. It's just like when I read the books, I want to take that principle out of the book and put it in me and have it be a living, breathing billboard of that principle. So when I heard about the standards of network marketing, you need to talk to a minimum of 2 people a day. The 3-foot rule, fortunes in the follow-up. You got to be connecting with people, right? I raised my standards to the standards of network marketing. Anybody who does that is going to get the result. Anybody who does that. If you raise your standards to this, now if you wake up 3 days out of the week, 4 days out of the week, and you didn't raise your standards to the standard of a successful network marketer, then you're not going to get the results, because you don't get a result without an action. It's that simple. It's math, you guys. That's just a decision. But sometimes those decisions aren't so easy. For whatever reasons, we could go all year long every morning and talk about the different reasons for why people make decisions. But why are you making your decisions? That's what matters. It's not the economy. It's your economy that you're concerned with, right? So are you raising your standards to what you know the network marketing standards are? I read Robert Kiyosaki. I read Paul Zayton Pilzer. I've listened and gone to, GoPro, Eric Worre, right? What are those standards? Now, am I raising my standards to those standards? If I am, I'll get the results all day long. It may take a little time.
Dave,
that's simple.
Hey, Dave, I just want to add really quickly, like I'm really enjoying and taking in working really closely with Jerry Fontanez. Is a 10-time world champion, martial artist. I mean, he ranks up there with the best. He's a legend, and just to watch this guy's tenacity. And we talk about standards, and when he says what he has to do, I mean, he has to do it, and he's like, I hope I'm not driving you crazy, but I appreciate it so much because, it's probably, it's very similar. Digna was laughing because she said, it's like how you were with Dave, like any day, anytime, like Dave, I hope I'm not bothering you, but, I'm just like, and you were like, any day, anytime, whatever you need, just, I want to see you succeed. And that's what I told him. And it's just really cool. We're talking about standards right now, watching his standards as opposed to somebody else who might have different standards, a different approach, and it's not whether it's good or bad. It's a decision, it's a decision. I think we all absolutely can do more. And it is a decision. Like Tony Robbins says, and I'll end it with this, we can't necessarily change our lives overnight, but we could change the direction we're going in an instant, in a heartbeat. It's just a decision. So
thank you, Willie. You guys, you just made me think of something too. The most important thing you should be gleaning from this Zoom at the top of everything is that your thoughts mean something. That template can become your reality just based on your thoughts. Just solely based on your thoughts. Your thoughts, not anybody else's. There's our little asterisk down at the bottom. Note to self, like disclaimer, not anybody else's thoughts, only your thoughts. That whatever's on that template could absolutely, unequivocally, immutably become a reality based on your thoughts. And that's, that's powerful. All right, anybody else before we got, I'll take 1 or 2 more. If anybody has anything.
I give a quick testimony.
Yes.
Introduced to this business last October or so by Willie Morris. And because it was my birthday, we had the holidays and everything. Being Puerto Rican, I know I wasn't going to stick to the shake every day because of the festivities and the food that we eat during the holidays. So I decided I was going to wait till January to start getting the program with every day, the shakes and the isogenesis. I was at 226 pounds. I was 26 pounds overweight. So I set a goal that I wanted to hit 199. And this morning I got on the scale and it's 199. So I've lost 27 pounds
Nice.
since January. Now, the plus on this is that my energy level is off the roof. I had prostate cancer 9 years ago, so I had a problem going to every night, getting up like a little baby every 2 hours to go to the bathroom. Since about 6 weeks into it, I sleep like a baby. I get up maybe once a night and I fall asleep within seconds. And before I used to just stay up. And the gravy on this, and I'm not claiming that this is gonna work for everybody, but I was getting arthritis on my hands. And I retired when I was 60, and then a couple of years ago, when I moved here to St. Augustine, originally from New York, I got bored. So I'm driving a school bus, which is great hours in the morning, a couple hours in the morning, a couple hours in the afternoon, weekends off, 12 weeks off during the summer, vacation time. So my hands, I was starting to hurt, and with the driving the big wheel, steering wheel, I was starting to hurt. And every time I would put my hand and squeeze it, it would hurt. About 6 weeks into this, I noticed that my hands weren't hurting anymore.
Nice.
God, no, but it's 100% better than it was before. Now, just a little side note. I heard somebody say you could give your dog the shake. So I put a little water after I'm done with the shake, and I put it on the bowl of my new puppy that we bought. I got a Frenchie. It's 8 months ago. And now, thanks to you guys, I created a monster. Level. I used to play with her in the morning, 20 minutes. Now I have to do that in the morning and at night. And as soon as I put on my blender, no matter where that dog is, she will run to the blender, sit there, and she will actually salivate. Just to create a monster.
I do that. I do that too when I hear the blender going in. I salivate.
But
That's awesome, Hector. Thank you so much for sharing.
Thanks, guys.
What an incredible blessing, and you know, that's your quality of life. That's you as an individual, and you know, the ripple effect that's going to have. It's definitely going to have a ripple effect. How big that is going to be dependent on you. But what an awesome testimony. Thank you. You know, just in ending here, Melissa, did you want to say something? And then we'll end it here. You're muted, Al. Let's see if there you go.
Oh,
I unmuted
okay.
it.
I just want to share with you all that I had my personal best swimming 3.5 miles in a lake this week, and how grateful I am for the isogenesis and the AMP products, and just how this journey is continuing for me. So I'm really, for anybody out there wanting to give that a try, it's been a journey, as you know, but super stoked that my coach was here from Idaho and we went and did that, and it really pushed my endurance, and I'm at a new place. So I'm excited.
Woo, congratulations. Great job. Personal best.
Thank you. Yep.
Love it. It's never too late, you guys. The past does not determine your future. Okay, so just in closing, you know, the idea behind the quarantine, you know, and what he says about, you know, to be everybody bitter, anger, blame everybody. You know, I do better than I absolutely do better. Am I doing my best? I'm going to work on it more. And when I fall, though, it's this bigger picture, and what I wanted to share this for this morning, I hope that you get a sense of a bigger picture, a bigger purpose that includes you, but it's also more encompassing. And it's the thing that when I fall, and I'll fall again, I'll make mistakes, I get back up. And I don't change my vision. I don't change my goals because of the challenges that are in between where I am and where my goal is. I get back up, you guys. I am a Job in that sense. I get back up, and I haven't changed my vision. I haven't changed my the way I'm going to accomplish the goals that I want to accomplish in my life. You know, I'm not a success seeker looking for one thing to the next. And if it doesn't happen fast enough, I go to the next thing and then the next and then the next. That's not a Job. We ought to write. I was talking with Carrie the other day. I said, you know, she was talking about the different, about her core thing and the different temperaments. And I said, we ought to write like some of the things that you should do. Like, we always talk about what we can do and what we should do. We ought to like get very clear on what we shouldn't do. Like the things that we shouldn't do. Success seeker is one of the things that you shouldn't do. Like, just so we can write out that contrast so people can say, okay, I need to avoid doing that. I do that. The do nots. Don't do this. Don't quit and go look for success in somewhere else. Because like T. Harv Eker said, if you can't make it in isogenics, you can't make it anywhere. So I just hope there's a bigger sense of purpose and a bigger picture to the overall plan of happiness. Happiness is not a company. It's not a transaction. It's not even an event right now in this moment. It's the accumulation of all of that. And what is the next magnificent win? So you guys, thanks so much for showing up today. And let's go out and make the best of today and be that light in the world that we are and take on that responsibility. With that, we'll see you guys tonight on the Zoom. And love you guys. Thanks so much.
Love you too, Dave. Have a great day. Thank you, guys.
Dave.
Bye, everyone.
Thanks, Dave. Thank you.
Let's make it a great week, guys. Let's make it a great week.
Good day.
Thank you, Dave.
Thanks,
Thank you so
everybody.
much.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
Dave.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dave.
Thanks for staying the course with us.
Thanks, Dave, and good morning. Did we have that open? No.